Welcome back to Hilaal Live. I'm Lukman Shadrack, all the way from the Cape Town studios. Thanks for watching us. Time now for conversations with Insight with Sister Shaamiela Safodien, our weekly psycho-spiritual conversations that encourages self-awareness in the Muslim community. Tonight's topic is called Honoring the Feminine. Now, the feminine energy, as we know, is present in both male and female, but it is in the woman that its depth and power is embodied. Tonight, in celebration of Women's Month, we talk about honoring the feminine. And joining us via Zoom, Sister Shaamiela Safodien. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. Thank you for having me.
My absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for taking the time. And as we do, listeners, we're going to try and open the WhatsApp line as well if you have any questions. But for now, Shaamiela, a very important, interesting topic about, honoring the feminine. Let's begin with the description of the feminine embodied in a woman.
I think maybe let's begin by saying that to be embodied means to be connected, right?
Okay.
So connected to your experience, your body, and in a way that's really accepting. So the feminine embodied to me is really the being nature of the human being, rather than the angst of the doing nature, right? So there's a slowness to it, there's a receptivity to it, there's a quiet, there's a stillness that the feminine embodies. The feminine, she is receptive, right? It means that she allows, she's open. It means that she doesn't live in dissociation from her body and the emotional experience. She's cyclical in nature, right? And I think this is most notably shown to us in the menstruation, the monthly menstruation that women go through. And that we almost embody throughout that month, we embody the 4 seasons of, that we all experience on earth. So that being, autumn, winter, spring, and summer. And that there's a difference to a woman every week. She sort of cycles through that 28 days. She's also intuitive. So she's not afraid to be led by the experience that she's having in a felt sense, her gut, her womb. Those things that is beyond logic, right? And then lastly, she's expressive. So what that means is that she's not afraid of the emotional and the spiritual realm, right? And she allows whatever experience she's having on the internal sort of side to be expressed externally. Yeah. So that's feminine embodied.
Yeah, a large amount of this is obviously built in the DNA, built in, how a woman is built, blueprint, basically, of how women, I can just picture all the brothers coming closer to the screen right now to learn a lot more. Quite a few formulas that they've quite to design around discovering and psychoanalyzing a woman. But this is why we've got you on, to explain the beauty that makes up a woman as well. And a large amount of this, is it passed down from generation to generation? For example, the way my sister behaves is very similar to the way my mom behaves. Something like that?
I think to some degree, yes.
Okay.
I think that what I always like to take into consideration is temperament. Because a woman may be, we're all women, but we do have different temperaments. And so, yes, the example our moms or our older sisters have kind of like showed us, there may be some form of a conditioning. And so, yes, you can learn the feminine from your mother or the older women from older generations in your family. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. So what are the principles, Shaamiela, of the feminine energy? And how do we as men and women attune to this type of energy?
All right. So there's quite a few, but there's 3 that I want to mention, and that is presence, creativity, and flow. Okay. So if we begin with presence is moment-to-moment awareness. Right. I'm taking into consideration what's happening on my internal side, as well as the environment and the external factors. It means that I'm connecting to my experience. So there's this coherence between heart, mind, body, right?
Okay.
And that's what it means to be present. And again, I'm going to come back to saying these are principles that is innate within men and women. But as women, we kind of lead the way in terms of just embodying it and showing what this looks like. The second one is creativity. And so when you think about creativity, you think about maybe the process of creation of life that takes place in the woman's womb. But also we can think about it as a project, right? You're starting a business. There is something that you want to create from something new. And at the end of that process, there's going to be a birthing process, right? So essentially, with any form of creativity, there has to be a gestation period. And that's the process of bringing all of that into form, whatever it is that you are working toward, just like the baby has to form and then be birthed and brought into the world and, to see the light of day. So that's creativity. And then the last one is flow.
Okay.
So these all for me really fit together really quite nicely. So flow really allows us to go where we are meant to go, right? So if you think about, again, creating a project, creating a business, you may have an end goal that you have in mind. But the flow is going to be the thing that's going to ask you to kind of be more flexible, to be able to sway from side to side as things happen during that project. So it's almost like an alert relaxation, right? So there's a sort of like a surrendered energy that you come with, but at the same time, there's an alertness. So I want to say this, there's often that saying, I just go with the flow, right? So sometimes I feel like that saying, we do hear that often. And I think people try to perhaps describe it as, I'm not resistant to anything. But I think sometimes that can be problematic because it may mean that we embrace passivity. Sorry, did you want to say something?
That's exactly where I was actually heading, is that type of energy, or going with the flow type of thing, would then mean that there are times that I'm less resistant to my partner, to my children, to my environment.
Absolutely.
It could be borderline. I'm a pleaser. I'm just ready to please everybody. Am I on the right track?
Absolutely, and I think that again that tends to be something that's almost revered, and we are told that's the good thing to do. However, we know that doesn't serve us always. Within the right context, it can serve us, but sometimes it can actually hinder our process.
Correct.
And so I think the flow speaks to the responsiveness we have. And I like to think about, an example for us to think about is to think about a river, right? And I think that flow works best within the confines of boundaries, right? Healthy boundaries.
Okay.
So if you think about a river flows. But a river is not a river without banks, right? The banks is what makes the river. So those are the boundaries.
Okay.
And that is what gives the form to the flow. And that's really what it is. And I think with the flow, it's a really great example. And the river sort of metaphor is a really great example of the relationship between the masculine and the feminine. So the containment and the banks would be the masculine, and the flow that happens in the river would be the feminine.
I'm just thinking, I've got one or two brothers thinking right now, but the river where I'm based at the moment is quite a heavy flow. So how do I navigate? Is obviously we all have times in our life where things go with the flow and things run smoothly, and then things don't go so smoothly, where you get those whitewater rafting, those type of rivers I'm talking about as well. But how does one navigate and get to that balance of, is it harder for women because they have a different energy? Or are men more in tune with that type of energy to say, let's bring it back a bit, more methodical, that type of thing?
It's a great question, and I think it's the age-old sort of debate between head and heart. or, kind of like the flow and the form. I do think it depends on the woman. I think there are women who are more balanced within their masculine and feminine. I think there are women that are more sort of emotional, right? And so there tends to be more of that kind of gushing that you speak about, where we have to white river raft. But then I also have met men, who have a similar experience, where there is a lot of gushing, and they have to learn to kind of pull back, right? But I think it's exactly as you say, there's times and there's seasons for everything.
Yeah.
And it's the same with, you look at a river, you see that there's days it's overflowing and it's gushing. And there's times where it's this sort of like a trickle happening. And again, the flow is about moving and being flexible, and being able to just embrace whatever's happening. So again, that presence, bringing that presence to the experiences that you're having.
Yeah, what is that expression? Going up a river without a paddle, or going up a creek without a paddle, or something like that. There's an expression like that.
With one paddle or something like that. Yeah, exactly. So meaning that you're not in the best state to be on that river.
We're chatting to Sister Shaamiela Safodien. Conversations with Insight is we're talking about a very important topic today that I'm sure everybody's interested in, is honoring the feminine, especially being Women's Month as well. We just came out of Women's Day on the 9th of August, and the entire month of August, we encourage our brothers our fathers, our sons, to not only just appreciate our mothers, grands, aunts, daughters during this time, should be throughout the year, inshallah. And I'm chatting to Shaamiela Safodien, who's giving us much insight into the feminine energy as well. After the break, we chat a bit more to Shaamiela Safodien right here on Hilaal Live. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Hilaal Live. Thanks for watching us on channel 347. Much appreciated. We're chatting to Shaamiela Safodien around honoring the feminine. As we do on a Thursday, we tune into very important topics around psycho-spiritual conversations, encouraging self-awareness in the Muslim community. Shaamiela, thanks once again for joining us. Really, really appreciated. Chatting about the energy of, the feminine energy as well. Women occupy many roles and spaces in our society, in our communities, in our workspace as well. How do we honor the feminine in all these types of roles and spaces?
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly something that is, I think, ongoing and changing, as we move through the 21st century. I think that the most important thing is in the way that we honor women is to honor their choices.
Okay.
And that, I think, tends to be something that is almost debatable for most people. Kind of, what is a woman's choice? Where does she want to show up? How does she want to show up? Which is an interesting thing. And I think in terms of the divide, not that there is a real divide between men and women and the masculine and feminine, but just that perhaps that's been a little bit more censored for women. So I think we honor her choices. And I think the most important thing there is to say that if a woman chooses to, show up in a workplace, whether she decides, corporate is the space she wants to be, whether she's in healing professions or the medical field, whatever it is that we honor that choice, right? Or if she decides that, no, the working environment is something that I don't want to spend my time in. I'd like to actually be home, raise a family, be present in, my children's lives every single day, every hour. I think that's a really good starting point, honoring the choice, whatever that choice is for her, whether that's in the home or outside of it.
Do you think that decisions in those roles, okay? A lot of the times we have a lot of our sisters that have really high flying corporate jobs where the demand for them to make decisions on a daily basis, on a monthly basis, very sensitive decisions as well. These type of decisions get affected along the way by various aspects in a woman's life as well. Do you find this happens?
Absolutely. I think for a woman, it's always, about, I think, the age-old sort of expectation, perhaps of the tradition or the different cultures that we we come from, which is that space is in the home, taking care of a family, and that should be the first choice. I don't know that that is the choice every woman is going to make.
Yeah.
But yes, there are sensitive decisions. I think that the most important thing that I think I've learned and what I continue to see is that, there's this question often around, can women have everything? And I think the most notable and the most honest answer is that they can have everything, but not at the same time. If you are in the working world and you're having kids, there is a difficulty and there is a challenge. And I say that as someone who is in the working world and also has children. There is a challenge to that. It doesn't mean it cannot be done, but it does mean that there is a challenge we have to accept about that there's going to be times where it's a little bit more difficult and a little bit more easier. Also depends on your support system, and then also the age of your children.
For sure.
So yes, I think that you've got it correct. There are sensitive decisions to be made.
Nice. We're chatting to Sister Shaamiela Safodien on Conversations with Insight around a lovely topic today, which is honoring the feminine. Shaamiela, there's a lot of necessary and challenging discussions around the masculine and the feminine in especially in our current times. I mean, this is an age-old question that's been coming along for many, many years as well. How can the masculine and feminine collaborate for greater harmony, greater acceptance, that type of thing? I mean, this is not something new. This is not something new that's been posed to us. What's your take on this?
Absolutely. I like that the words harmony and acceptance. I think we begin there, right? Let me begin by saying we need each other. Men and women, the masculine and the feminine, we need each other. And I really want you to hear that, because I think that sometimes it almost seems we're at war with each other, even though we have these notable differences between us. Right? And every single one of us serves a purpose. Every single one of those things serves a purpose. So I think we begin by saying, as a man or as a woman, you embrace the fact that you embody masculine and feminine energy. And if you are able to, I think within yourself, begin to balance that and learn where the one's place is and the other, there's a chance that you're probably going to embrace the opposite sex a little bit more because you have an understanding of those different energies. So if we don't do that, what I think tends to happen is that we see, let's say, a man who's completely lost in logic and we reject that. Or we see a woman who is attuned to her emotions, or trying to remind you to feel some more, and, you reject that. So I think a starting point is to embrace that within yourself, right? And to bring that into balance within yourself, which is, I think, an individual journey. I think that we're in a time where I believe we're holding each other more accountable, right? For the parts that we play in this sort of age-old argument, which I don't think is a bad thing. But I think beginning with an understanding, right, that logic has its place, emotion has its place, and that we accept that we show up differently in the world, and that is not a bad thing. We can actually learn from each other.
Look, coexisting is what we're talking about. Coexisting, within a space, within an environment. Is our community in general, I'm talking about our Muslim community as well. You see a large range of our Muslim community in your practice. Do you find people more accepting to this concept? Do you find that they struggle in certain aspects? Do you find maybe it's an age thing? Do younger people tend to resonate to this type of thinking? Or do you find that maybe the older crowd are a little more settled? They can now, be at one with their emotions. What's your take on this?
Yeah, that's such an interesting question. Thank you. I think that what I see, and I can only mainly sort of speak from working with couples, is that, yes, I do think there's a shift happening. I think that men are starting to understand that, there is a need that a woman, alhamdulillah, I think it, and I do say this, and obviously this doesn't exclude other people, but it is happening more so often with the younger generation. There obviously are the exceptions in the older generation who are willing and open to learn something new. But there does seem to be this embracing of, okay, if there's an issue in the relationship, perhaps there's something I've got to learn and open myself up to learning that I haven't before, that I haven't been perhaps conditioned to in my family or in my culture.
I get you.
So there is the shift, I think, happening. Yeah.
Okay. You come armed with a quote every week. What's the quote for this week?
So this quote is one of my favorites by Dr. Maya Angelou, and we all know her, incredible writer and poet. And it goes, a woman in harmony with her spirit is like a river flowing. She goes where she will without pretense and arrives at her destination prepared to be herself and only herself.
Nice.
I think it's a beautiful quote. I think that it speaks to everything we spoke about today, right? But I want to say that we are most strong when we are connected to our nature, whether you are a man or a woman. And so your strength, to the ladies out there, is in connecting to that nature, getting to know it. We've kind of been socialized out of it, and opening up to that experience that you are having so that you can be yourself, which is a woman, right? And to embody that and to be able to teach men, what that looks like. And for men to be open to learning from that.
I was just going to say, that is the addition to that, is that each of us, women or men, should be open to those experiences and to accepting what the other brings us all. Fascinating, as always. Thank you so, so much. Where do our lovely viewers find you if they'd like to make contact? What's the best methods?
So best is my website, livingwithinsight.net. And then you can find me on Instagram, and that's Living with Insight, and on Twitter. Sometimes I venture into that world.
Okay, thanks very much. All the very best to you. We look forward to next week's edition. Thanks so much for joining us. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Take care.
That's Sister Shaamiela Safodien joining us, Conversations with Insight. That's our slot on a Thursday. Thank you for joining us. I hope that was inspirational and educational to everyone as well. From the Cape Town crew, Sohail Barnes and myself, Luqman Shadrack, we're back tomorrow between 5 and 6, a bumper-packed edition of Hilaal Live. Do look out for that. Have a wonderful evening. Assalamu alaikum.